This is episode 99 of Extraordinary Women Radio. Welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio. I am your host, Cami Gellner. Women are being called to lead with voice, vitality, and vigor. Each week, join me for wisdom-filled interviews with extraordinary women living out loud and making a difference in our world. Their stories will uplift, inspire, and spark your own purpose-driven journey. Hello, my extraordinary women friends. I hit the road last week with my Raise Up Your Voice, Visibility and Business Talk and headed to Milwaukee, where I received a big, warm welcome from the eWoman Network community there. I think there's something really wonderful about women from the Midwest. I felt so connected on a soul level, and I left with a whole lot of new friends. What a fabulous group of women. Jamie Shipley is the eWoman Network Managing Director there, and she's growing that chapter like wildflowers. There was a record turnout for that meeting, and I had so much fun sharing some of my best tips around how you show up and all of your light in the fire of who you are and really elevate your message out into the world so you're making the impact that you want to make, so that you're raising up how you're being seen and how you're being heard. It's work that I really love to share. I got to do it all over again when I got back to Colorado, and I spoke at the Colorado Businesswomen Luncheon earlier this week. And then I'm off to Salt Lake City and Portland in just a few weeks to spread some more love there. Then I'm back to Denver for my May 21st Extraordinary Women Connect event at the Abend Gallery in downtown Denver. So a lot of really good things are happening right now. It really feels like feels like I'm in the flow. It's a lot of fun. This is my 99th episode of Extraordinary Women Radio. I can't believe it. Be sure you tune in next week for my 100th episode, as I'm going to be sharing my interview with Zainab Salbi, the founder of Women for Women International. Her story is so amazing. And if you haven't picked up her book, Between Two Worlds, Escape from Tyranny, Growing Up in the Shadow of Saddam, you are going to want to grab a copy, as it's going to make that interview even more fun for you. Her story is incredible. It's such a good book. The interview is amazing. I was so honored to get to interview Zainab. So be sure you tune in next week. It's going to be coming out, and I can't wait to be sharing that with you. And speaking of being in the flow, I'm super excited about the Circle of Inspiration panel that we've got lined up for the May 21st Extraordinary Women Connect Gala. Our guest today is one of the panelists, Stacy Taubman. She's the founder and CEO of Rise Collaborative Workspace. She'll be joined by the president and CEO of the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, Kristen Blessman, and Shannon Block, who is a female CEO many times over. She's been the CEO of the Denver Zoo, the Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers, and Denver Health, and she's doing some really amazing work right now. And then Virginia Santee will be joining us as well. Virginia is the co-founder and co-CEO of Women in Kind, a co-working space designed by women for women. I interviewed her partner, Mel Yule, just a few episodes back, so you might want to tune into that episode. And I also interviewed Shannon Block earlier this year. So go back and tune into those. If you're interested in going to the event, we're already nearly 50% sold out, only a few days after launching the announcement of the panel. So we did sell out in January. You're going to want to grab your ticket early over at camigellner.com, and hope to see you there. It's going to be a really amazing event at a very beautiful art gallery downtown Denver. So let me tell you about Stacy Taubman, today's guest. I am so honored to be featuring Stacy today. Stacy is the founder and CEO of Rise Collaborative Workspace, a co-working space for women. Stacy has just opened her second location here in Denver after her very successful space in St. Louis. Rise Collaborative has been featured in publications including The Today Show, NBC News, USA Today, Bloomberg, and ELLE Magazine as a leader in the multi-billion-dollar co-working industry. I'm thrilled to have joined as a member here in Denver, and today Stacy shares how she transitioned from teacher to successful entrepreneur, how she raised the capital, the lessons learned along the way, and so much more. We get into talking about our shared passion for uplifting women and what's just happening in the world for women right now. It's kind of an exciting space to be. I adore this new friend, and it was awesome to get to do this interview face to face. You can check out the video that we recorded on Cami Gellner Facebook page if you'd really like to watch the video we recorded. It's a first for Extraordinary Women Radio on this 99th episode. And now let's meet Stacy Taubman of Rise Collaborative. Here we are.
So fun.
Yes, it's so much fun. We are actually recording live today. The very first time I've done an Extraordinary Women Radio live.
Yay!
And I'm here with Stacy Taubman, and we're doing video on top of the audio. So you can have a choice of which way to do this. And we are in Stacy Taubman's new space,
It's crazy.
Rise Collaborative, right?
Yes, Rise Collaborative. We got the keys on Monday of last week. So here we are on week 2.
And I'm a founding member, which I'm so excited about, because first of all, when you look down the list of who are your members here, I was like, I know her. And it's like you've put together a really amazing group.
Denver is such an incredible city. And then women that are coming to the table to believe in this is just, it pinched me kind of moment. Yeah.
So
congratulations.
Especially you.
I'm so excited to have you in our community. What you're doing for women, your podcast, your events, they're just out of this world.
Oh, it's so much fun. But this community is so much fun. It's fun what I'm getting to do. And this space is gorgeous. You have to come check this out. It's down on 7th and Colorado Boulevard. And it is amazing space.
Thank you.
It's
really been a long road, but it came together and it's still continuing to evolve. But it's looking pretty good. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I came and visited when they were starting to deliver the furniture just a few weeks ago. And it was all kinds of boxes were being moved in. And
I'm getting triggered because the wrong furniture's here and I'm trying to keep my cool and not freak anyone out, but I'm like losing it.
Exactly. So let's talk about just the concept of Rise Collaborative, because this is your second space that you opened. You have your first one was in St. Louis.
Yes. I feel like it's I'm not a parent, but I feel like it's kind of like giving birth from what I hear. You know, your first kid, it's a challenge and painful at times. And then you have amnesia and you do it all over again. And then you're like, oh, I forgot how challenging this is.
Yeah. So what prompted you to open a second?
You know, I am a poster child of a girl dreaming big. You know, my first company is actually called Girls Dreaming Big. It's a tutoring coaching company for high school girls. And so we always had this bigger vision than one city. You know, the first couple of weeks of doing an Instagram page, I actually posted a picture of Paris. It was like our views from our Paris location.
I want to be at the grand opening.
I know, right? Don't we all want to be there?
Yeah.
Excuse to have to go to, Paris on a regular basis. So I've always had this grander vision, and it's just a matter of how do you accomplish that, and what better city to open up a second location than Denver? Yeah. I think just today the news came out. You guys are like number 2, the best city to live in the country.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I read this morning how Denver actually jumped ahead of Colorado Springs in some ranking, and it's I think number 2. I believe it. I've fallen in love with this city.
Yeah, and you've had some really interesting statistics you found out about Denver of women entrepreneurs.
So when we opened in St. Louis, we found out that St. Louis had 72,000 women business owners with no employees. So we were looking for a city that would have a comparable market, and Denver actually has 88,000. Go Denver. And I think it's because of people like yourself and other organizations that are really supporting women in this space.
Right.
You know, it's a lonely, intimidating endeavor, and you need all the support you can get. And Denver is just, bustling with support.
Yeah. So Stacy, you this is a whole new transition for you, because you were originally a teacher.
I was a high school math teacher for 12 years. I'm a big old math nerd. So if any nerds are out there, go math.
Yeah. So tell us how, I love stories of transition. This is something that we often talk about on Extraordinary Women Radio, because stories of transition, it's like we hear this calling, we step and we make these big leaps, right? Like you've made a huge leap.
Yeah.
What prompted that I want to go do these other things?
Well, I think it's a period of being lost, right? I was that kid that didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I got my degree in math and math education, and then thought I wanted to be a principal by the time I was 28, which I don't know where that drive or that ambition came from, but it was in there from a very young age, right? And so I got my master's right out of college and interned at 24. I don't know about you at 24.
At 24, I was,
you barely know how to be an adult, let alone a teacher, let alone discipline 17 and 18-year-olds.
Right.
Right. Needless to say, the disciplining didn't go amazing. And I was a little bit like, ugh, now what?
What do I do with this?
What do I do? I don't enjoy being the bad guy. I want to find out, like, why are you doing
I would have
this?
wanted to be playing with them.
I know, right?
I didn't want to do it 24.
Why did you make that decision?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And that's not always the best way to be a principal. And not that principals are mean.
Right.
So I went back and got my master's in school counseling. I thought I want to be the good guy, not the bad guy, right? I want to talk about life and help them. You know, they say you teach what you need to learn, right? So I want to help them figure out what they want to be when they grow up, because I was still figuring it out. Yep. And so that master's took me till I was 33 and a lot more money. So so I'm 33, highly educated, and not a job existed that was the right fit for me. School counseling's amazing, but you're doing when I did it, I don't know what it's like today. You're doing more paper pushing, credit checking, scheduling. And I'm an ideas girl. I'm a people person. And, just looking at spreadsheets all day is not what lifts me up.
Right.
So when you're floundering, life has a pretty funny way of sending you loud messages. And a young woman at my school actually committed suicide on July 4th, 2012 at our best friend's party. And it's just devastating, right? And it stirs up, when those kind of things happen, it stirs up so much in you, and you're really looking for answers.
Absolutely. I interviewed Brittany Darras, who's out of Colorado Springs. She's a teacher up there. Cool. And she did a TED Talk on, so she was a teacher who experienced kids who had, so somebody in her classroom did commit suicide, and then another child attempted suicide.
It has a ripple effect.
And so she started this whole thing on writing a letter to every 100 of her students.
Oh my gosh!
So a really good episode for any of you to go back and listen to that one, because
that sounds amazing.
It's such a horrible epidemic out there, shifting that.
It is. And at that time, I didn't quite understand suicide. Suicide's complicated, and there's a lot that goes into it, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But at that time, I was just thinking, this girl has it all. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Which that's not how it works.
That's exactly what Brittany said too.
Yes. Yeah. And it took this shift of really trying to understand it. I read a great book called Price of Privilege, which talks about America's newly identified at-risk group, our preteens and teens from affluent, well-educated families. Because I was thinking, this girl has food on her table. She's part of sports teams, like all this stuff. Right. How did this happen? Right. Kind of like Kate Spade in some ways.
Yeah. Right.
But again, suicide is complicated. Depression, anxiety, very complicated. Yeah. And I was not understanding that at the time.
Yeah.
But it led me on this whole path of trying to do something about, how bad high school sucks. For boys and girls.
Yeah. And so you started, it was a nonprofit?
It was a for-profit. It's a tutoring and coaching company for high school girls called Girls Dreaming Big.
Okay.
I started in January 2013 while teaching. So I'd stand up and teach math, and then I'd be sitting down, and all my students would be around me. And I would say, what do you need? What can I create to make high school not be so awful? Because it didn't matter if they were straight A students, best families, all the things we think insulate kids from, trauma and struggle. Yeah. They would be, having a hard time too. Yeah. And those things get in your way from dreaming and achieving big. So how can I support you in that process, but come at it from this really positive angle? Mm-hmm. So I had enough success out of the gate to leave education and pursue this full time at the end of that school year, which was huge and unexpected,
huge,
right? Yes, because I didn't know what I was doing.
You have the seed, and you start to move into it, and you start to go forward with it, and
you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's happening! This is amazing!" Yeah. And I think many reasons I was successful. One, that I had my target market right in front of me on a daily basis.
Right.
But what I took for granted is how much my classroom and my peers were why I was successful out of the gate. Because I'm going to tell you, I sort of crashed and burned when I left teaching. Me and Netflix became good old friends in June of that year because I was so paralyzed by fear. So fear.
But not knowing what to do or letting the fear actually stop.
Oh,
right?
And I find it comical because my salary from being a teacher was going to die in August. I am not a trust fund kid. I did not have the big old savings. So here I am in June. You would think that I'd be hustling, getting out there, setting myself up for success. And I am on the couch Netflixing all day long. Yeah. Because it's, that shift from being an educator to an entrepreneur was really challenging for me. I so connected with, hi, my name is Stacy. I'm a math teacher. I felt pride in that. I was changing lives. And so then it's, hi, my name is Stacy. And I don't really know how to talk about what I'm doing. Yeah. And I feel like a fraud. just was really a lot at first.
Yeah. And, and I think a lot of our listeners can really, they get that, because so many of the listeners here have gone through big transitions. And when I left the corporate world, I know that, I made that leap, and then it was like, I was no longer a VP of marketing.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do I stand for?
Yeah.
And where do I find my identity? And, what we know is that who we are is not our job title.
Right. What we do.
Exactly. And then letting that live forward. So the fear was stopping you.
Absolutely.
What did you do? How did you?
Well, what I did, luckily, is what caused me to be here today. I was like, I have to get off the couch. I'm going to start interviewing smart, strong, successful women because I know what it takes to be a high school math teacher. But what if this girl wants to be anything other than a high school math teacher? I mean, I think it's a great profession, but not every young woman wants to pursue that.
Right.
So any woman that would have coffee with me, I had coffee with. And I just transferred one numbing tactic of Netflix to another numbing tactic of having coffees with really amazing women.
Well, it's so funny because when I heard you speak at Women of Denver recently, you were talking about the number of coffees that you have. And it's so funny, when my first year of leaving the corporate world, when I did my taxes at the end of the next year, I had 102 coffees the year before.
That is hilarious. Absolutely.
And so when you said it,
300 of them. Yeah. I took it a little too far. But yeah, it becomes kind of addicting, and probably why you're doing what you're doing. It's so fun to hear people's stories.
It is.
It's energizing. It's inspiring. It's connection. Right? It's real connection. Exactly. I'm actually a secret introvert, which people don't believe.
So am I.
I know, right? So sometimes I joke that our community is a community of secret introverts and women who used to only be friends with guys. I have other women too, but many of us fall into that category. So when we were younger, we didn't know how to connect with women. Yeah. And so we'd be like the guy's girl.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. So I interviewed 300 women that first year.
Wow.
Now, I didn't drink 300 coffees. People are always like, you're already jazzed up. You don't need 300 coffees. I'm surprised you didn't die. The good news is I didn't have 300 coffees.
Right.
Not everyone has the opportunity to do that. But thankfully, I worked with girls from 3:30 to 8, right, in the afternoon. So what am I doing from 8 until 3:30? Well, I can fill my day with talking to incredible women. Yeah. So I was very fortunate and lucky, and a lot of women don't have that opportunity. So I want to make it easy for women to connect with the amazing women I get to meet.
Yes. Yeah. So this is how the Seeds of Rise go.
Yeah, it did, because 3 things came from those coffees. One, I noticed women felt just as passionate about connecting to young women as I did. They want to give back to the next generation, but sometimes it's hard to find those opportunities, even though there's so many amazing nonprofits and organizations helping, but they're either hard to find or they're not conducive to a busy woman's schedule.
Right.
We've solved that. The second thing I noticed is that like-minded women want to collaborate and connect. And I don't mean same industry, same ethnicity or race. I mean like-minded in terms of ambitious, collaborative, growth-minded, abundant, and while there's amazing networking groups out there, sometimes, there's quantity, but there's not always quality. And we're busy and we don't have a lot of time. So we want to know that we're going to have the opportunity to connect with women that are really going to inspire us. Yeah. And if you're a secret introvert, sometimes when you go into those things, you end up not talking to anyone. Yeah. So we sort of fixed that too. And then lastly, I found that, coffee shops are amazing, but they sure do get old.
Yeah.
Stupid stuff like who watches your laptop when you go to the bathroom. And when people who don't work from coffee shops hear that, they're like, that just sounds stupid. But when people who work from coffee shops hear that, they get it. It's nuanced and it's challenging. So those 3 patterns caused me to want to start a second company to solve my first company's problem, as well as connect with those women and solve their problems.
Yeah. So you started the one in St. Louis when?
The idea happened at the end of 2014. I had a very steep learning curve to learn how to raise capital, to write a business plan, all of those fun things. And so we didn't get our doors open until January 2017.
Okay. So let's talk about raising capital, right? Because, and I've done several interviews over the course of the last couple of years where we brought on women who have raised capital because I think it helps us to start to think bigger, right? Yes. I mean, there's this space of being able to think bigger into what else is possible in our world. Because sometimes if you're not thinking that way, you can stay really small, right? And
you don't know what you don't know,
right?
We actually just did a panel discussion in St. Louis around women and wealth, and there was some statistic that I'm going to butcher, but it was something like 60% or 70% of women would rather talk about death than talk about money.
Oh, interesting.
And so I love that you're changing the conversation and we're having conversations about money and raising capital and all those things, because we're not going to close that gap until we have these
and we get comfortable in understanding it, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, and part of to me, when I started wanting to talk to women who have been raising capital, was because I want to understand. It's like, I want to understand how that works. So
it's not easy.
So tell us about raising capital for St. Louis to start with, and then we can talk, because I know it was a different scenario.
It was, you know, being a high school math teacher, while I had started a company, it was a tutoring and coaching company. It was a very small one-off company. So trying to get people to have confidence in me to write checks for $25,000 or more.
Right.
Whew, that road nearly broke me many times. Yeah. You know, because I'm unproven. Who's to say that I can be successful doing this?
Right.
I would say I probably started trying to raise money September of 2015.
Okay. I didn't. So you had the business plan.
I had gotten the business plan, done the finances, done all this stuff, started interviewing CEOs in St. Louis and having them poke holes in my business plan. Jeff Cook, who's the CEO of Arco Construction in St. Louis. I think they do work in Denver too. It's a massive construction company, over 100 million. They were so kind. People like him were so kind to have lunch with me and say, here's some great things. Here's some not so great things. And he looked at me and he said, Stacy, to raise capital, you need capital. And I was like, well, Jeff, thank you for that advice. I was a high school math teacher. I have no money to my name, and I already left one full-time job to do a startup. So what do you suggest? Because that's not something I can do right now. And he said, go do a crowdfunding site like Indiegogo or Kickstarter.
Okay.
Best advice I'd ever gotten. And, give me good advice. I'm going to execute on it. I think he was surprised because 2 weeks later, I launched my Indiegogo campaign and we raised $20,000 in 2 weeks. And he was my first contributor of $1,000. So thank you, Jeff Cook, if you happen to be listening. And he was right. You kind of do need capital to raise capital because of the legal work.
Okay.
Now, I turned around with that $20,000 and spent $10,000 and ultimately made a $10,000 mistake for legal work for something called a PPM. Now, I know I'm getting kind of in the weeds. That stands for a private placement memorandum. I had gotten advice to raise money through equity. Actually, let me back up. A lot of people, when you raise capital, they love to say to you, there's many ways to skin a cat. First of all, I got so sick of hearing that lovely phrase. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. And that's a gross phrase. But it's true. There's so many different mechanisms to raise capital. Yep. And initially, I got advice to raise capital through equity.
Okay.
It's a more traditional, more common thing in the past. I think that a lot has changed, but at the time, that was what in St. Louis people were raising capital through. So I did what I was told. You get advice, you listen. And when you raise capital through equity, you don't have to get a PPM, but it's a smart thing to do. People had advised me that it's a great cover your tushy kind of document. It's like a big old binder, $10,000 worth of legal work. So if something went south, you've set yourself up for success.
So you don't have somebody coming back.
Yeah. And when you start hearing the horror stories, it was scary. And I was like, okay, I can see why this PPM is a smart thing to get. Okay. There's a lot of different advice out there regarding this document, but I took that advice.
Okay.
It took me forever to finish that document. Wrote the check on December 12th of 2015. 2015. And then met with Maxine Clark, who's the founder of Build-A-Bear. Build-A-Bear is an amazing, huge company. It started in St. Louis. Maxine Clark is one of the most kind, gracious women out there in terms of supporting entrepreneurs. She sat there for 2 hours and really, gave me great advice, poked major holes. And she said, how are you raising capital? I said, equity. And she said, well, what's your valuation? And I said, well, this guy from Yale and WashU who did my financial models said my valuation is $2.5 million. And she just laughed straight in my face.
And she's like, yeah, all right.
She laughed straight in my face. And think about it. If you don't know entrepreneurship and a guy who went to Yale for undergrad and WashU for grad school says that your company is valued at 2.5, you
might believe him.
You're going to listen, right? Yeah. And not that he was lying or not that he was wrong, but there's in theory and there's in reality, right? On paper, if we do what his projection said, sure, we're valued at that. But in reality, at that point, I had no revenue. I hadn't even started. Right. Why is an investor going to believe that I'm worth $2.5 million?
Right.
And so she was like, there's no way you're going to give your whole company away. You'll be lucky to get $1 million in valuation. What are you doing? So at that point, 12 days after I paid my $10,000 check, that massive binder for that PPM became null and void, because I no longer was going to raise capital through equity.
Okay.
And so luckily a different lawyer took pity on me, Scott, oh my goodness, Scott Levine. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot his name. Scott Levine took pity on me, and it was a godsend. And we actually did something called the Convertible Notes.
Okay.
Which is a document that you can get done for a lot less money, a lot faster. And it's a great document when you're starting. I'm not the expert, but for me, it was a great document because it's the best of both worlds. It's the potential to get equity down the road when your valuation is much higher. Mm-hmm. But should you not convert it, my investors, it converts to a note, like a bank loan.
Okay.
So my investors loved the idea that they had the chance for the upside should I go big and it convert to equity. But they also really like that, if I'm not able to have 10 locations worldwide or whatever it may be, then I'll pay them back in 5 years at an 8% interest, which is decent. Yeah. I mean, it's not like blow your mind, but it's respectable.
Exactly.
So I ultimately did that. But even with that, oh gosh, the road was challenging. I was supposed to have a minimum of 25. I couldn't get 25.
25 people?
I'm sorry, 25,000.
25,000.
A lot of times they'll encourage you to do a minimum of 25,000. And I just couldn't get people to believe in me enough to write me a check for 25,000. So I was able, my lawyer let me drop it down to 5,000 minimum.
Okay.
I got 5,000. Then I had momentum and got 10,000. Then I got a 15, couple 25. So it just took
a lot of work,
a lot of coffees. And someone said to me, ask for advice, get money, ask for money, get advice. And that was one of the best pieces.
Say that again.
So ask for money. I'm going to switch it up on you. Ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, you get money. And it's true. I've also heard
that's great.
It is. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but people also compare raising capital to dating.
Yeah. Well, energetically, it's just a totally different, if you're asking for money or if you're asking for advice, and it's like you're opening yourself up energetically.
It is.
Yeah.
And think about like when you're out there dating on the first date, you're not going to say like, will you marry me?
Right.
That would be kind of creepy, or I shouldn't say that. There are people that maybe that happens to. It's not creepy, but nonetheless, it would be at least a little bit much, right? Yeah. And so if you're going and you're building a relationship with somebody, and out of the gate, you're like, "Will you write me a check for 25,000?" Yeah, I find that a bit much, and especially people who have wealth that can do that. They're probably asked for things on a daily basis. Yeah. So instead, meeting with them, getting to know them, building a relationship. And so some people I had to court. I can remember one of my biggest investors in St. Louis, the 25,000 investor. I met him a year prior.
Okay.
And had just kept building a relationship.
Just kept having the conversation, sharing what the vision was.
Yeah.
And
updating him on my progress.
Hey, I like that vision.
Yes. And he also is an investor in the second location. And so it takes time. And people say start building that foundation before you need it. Because just like in dating, when you're, grabby and, very intense and desperate, it comes through in your energy.
Oh, totally.
And so
it's interesting because we've been in my mastermind group, my business mastermind group, I've been really teaching around the falling in love with sales, right?
Oh, I like that.
And so that concept of really being that receiving, that being open, being conscious of the energy that you're showing up is so important. It really matters. Whether it's sales for your business or whether it's,
it's all
investors.
sales.
It's
all, whether you call it sales now or not, it's all sales.
Yeah.
No, I think that's cool.
So you got that built. And how long was the St. Louis location open before you said, okay, I'm ready for the next one?
Great question. Well, thankfully in St. Louis, we were profitable and cash flow positive from day one. Mm-hmm. So that was great. But still, it was a nerve-wracking process to make sure we, being cash flow positive and making money are two different things, right? I would say in September of 2017, I was in a place of exhaustion. And I was like, you know what? I told my investors, we're not expanding. One's enough. I'm done. And, fast forward to December, I'm like, all right, expansion's back on the table.
So there was a pause.
There was a pause because I just felt so overwhelmed and exhausted. And, even with the second expansion this morning, when I was talking to my husband, I was like, I talk a lot about national expansion and global expansion. And I know that ultimately it's something I'm going to do, but I'm also reaching that point of exhaustion a little bit. And I'm like, or maybe two's just enough. Someone compared a lot of what we do to, is it HIIT or high intensity interval training? I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Where it's like you go hard really and then you kind of step.
Yes. It's like 30 seconds or 60 seconds of really intense working out. And then it's like a minute or two recovery. I don't know this firsthand, but I've heard people talk about it. And they compare what we're doing to that. And it's so true. I mean, being an entrepreneur, doing something like this is so intense.
Because you can't go that constant pace of hard,
Yes.
or you do burn out.
Oh, without a doubt. And so you have to build in that recovery time of giving yourself permission of maybe it is just 2, or maybe like in St. Louis, there's like, maybe it is just 1. What could that look like for me? What would that be? So from September to December, I was in that place and I started to recover. And then and actually when we were thinking about expansion, we were thinking about 5 cities. Kansas City was one of them, Denver as well. I'm on this 2-week kind of sabbatical, if you will, in Florida during the holidays with my husband. And the Denver Post called me out of nowhere. I hadn't gone to Denver. I hadn't declared. We had done research in Denver and I knew that it was on our short list, but I hadn't actively started pursuing it yet. And they reached out and said, we're doing an article on women's co-working spaces. We'd love for you to be one of the places featured. And I was like, yes, please. So I'm walking on the beach in Florida talking to somebody from the Denver Post. And so I thought, this is a pretty good sign. Yeah. And then, I mean, that's not why we chose it, but there are many signs like that.
Right. Yeah. And ultimately, when you did make that choice, how much did your gut come into play?
Oh, goodness. My husband makes fun of me because of how much I make decisions based on guts.
Yeah.
We had started down the path in Kansas City. Kansas City is a great city. We had visited, looked at buildings, met great women. Just ultimately, my gut didn't feel it. I couldn't find the building or the people that really made me feel like this is our next best city.
Right.
I came to Denver and I think this building we saw pretty quick. And I immediately could tell this was the right space between the people, between the space. You know, the first time I've ever been to Denver was at the beginning of February. And I found this building at the end of February.
Okay.
And I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
And we stuck by this building all along. I mean, it was a long road, but I could just sense that this city's energy and the women I meet here, I feel it. It's unbelievable.
Denver is, and I've said this a number of times on these episodes, that Denver's women entrepreneur market space is incredibly collaborative. It's like we have some really amazing groups of women,
great groups,
you know, between Women of Denver, the Dames.
Yeah. Wink's doing great stuff.
Wink. I mean, it's like we have so many different groups of women doing just amazing things, but there's great collaboration.
Yeah. And with 88,000 women business owners, there's a lot of space.
Exactly. And I think, and so you're going to be part of my Extraordinary Women.
I can't wait. I love the groups that you're bringing together. Yeah. So often people don't do that. They treat everyone as like competitors and picking sides. Yeah. And it shouldn't be about that.
Yeah.
And so I love what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's about connecting great women to great women. And this will be this particular in May will actually be 5 years of doing these. Right.
That's incredible.
And so I'm super excited that you're going to be part of the panel.
Yeah.
And part of what we're going to be talking about is collaboration and really bringing women together in community and building community.
Yes. There's actually a term, sorry to interrupt you, that one of our core values at Rise is this term called shine theory. I didn't come up with the term. This amazing journalist, Ann Friedman, and her best friend, Amino Sao, I'm sure I'm butchering that name, so I apologize, came up with this term. And when I heard Ann Friedman speak about shine theory, I was like, yes, this is language around what we live by and believe. It's this idea of like, I don't shine unless you shine.
Yeah.
This idea of my job is to shine a light on everyone else. It's not about the light being on me. Yeah. It's about, I don't want to get to the top by myself. I want all my friends with me. And so we actively are shining lights on all of our members and the different organizations who aren't even members, because that's what we believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you obviously believe in shine theory as well. And
totally believe in it. And I just, that whole, you know, when we do lift one another up, we, you know, it's like I always say, it's like the 1 + 1 = 3, or, 2 + 2 =
it could be 10.
Exactly. and it's that kind of expansive energy that we're playing in when we work together like that. And it's so powerful.
Oh, I love it. I think it's going to be such a great event. I know hopefully everyone will come to the event because it's going to be a huge success, I'm sure, because you have such great women on the panel. Yeah. Not necessarily speaking about me, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
So one thing we didn't finish is when you raised capital here, it was different because you had your members in St. Louis.
Yes. So I was more proven. You know, I had this idea. I showed the community that I could take an idea and get to execution. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't originally plan to raise capital, but it was something that some changes in our original plan caused me to decide to raise capital. And I decided right before I left for my honeymoon for 2 weeks in Europe. Luckily, my husband knows who he married. So I was actually putting together a pitch deck while on my honeymoon.
Oh, that's so funny.
We had received the first draft of the lease right before I left. So I had to raise capital fast.
Okay.
Or I would lose the building.
Okay.
I am proud to say that my capital for this building came from my members at Rise Collaborative.
Which just speaks volumes. Right?
Well, it's such a compliment and so terrifying. So terrifying. These amazing women who are now family to me, who've been in it. Some women have been in it from day one. Some are newer members, but they believe in it so much. They said, when you raise capital, I want to know about it. And so my investors all for this space are members of my St. Louis community. And I love you all if you're listening and wouldn't be here without them. Yeah. And so it's just such a compliment, and I just am honored.
It is, because they believe in what you're creating. Mm-hmm. You know, they're experiencing that value of being part of a community like that. And, you know, so that.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And it's so neat to see how it's affected their lives, both personally and professionally. And of all my investors, which I love them all, the one that I'm really proud of is a woman who's a financial planner. Because as a financial planner, you know,
she actually knows how to,
she's somebody who like really is going to, I would imagine financial planners sometimes are more risk averse. I'm over stereotyping and over generalizing, so I apologize in advance. But you know what I mean? Like that to me says something. If somebody like that who, you know, certified financial planner is out there believing in me enough to write a check and take a risk on me. Yeah, that's a pretty nice thing. And I love all my investors though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about women in success, right? I mean, so it's like, yes, there's the shine theory. Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
What is it about women that's different as leaders, right? Mm-hmm. That's, you know, that women's passion for how they step into what they're doing. You've been working with women and girls for a long time.
I have.
What do you notice?
Well, first thing, it's kind of going to go off rails, but I'll bring it back. The first thing I still notice in myself is that so I don't know if you guys have heard of Sarah Fryer. She's the CEO of Nextdoor. She used to be the CFO of Square. Mm. She sits on the board of Walmart and Slack. Okay. So this powerhouse woman who, by the way, is bringing her nonprofit event called Ladies Who Launch to Denver to Rise Collaborative. Mm. So I'm so excited. It's going to be an amazing event, more details to come. But I can remember when I met her in St. Louis, in my mind, I thought she's going to be so different. I still think people of that caliber are so different from me. And I find that funny, but she's of course like so relatable, so wonderful. And what I've noticed with women leaders that I have met, I can't speak for all of them, but the ones I met are so about reaching back and helping others. You know, Sarah Fryer didn't have to bring her Ladies Who Launched to Denver, or let alone my space. She's only going to 4 cities in 2019 because CEO of Nextdoor, you're a little busy, right? Her 4 cities, 3 of them are international. She's actually from Ireland, and the only city that's in the United States is Denver and at Rise. Wow. And I can't speak to what her motivations were, but a part of me thinks to help me. Right. You know, because I have found
that lifting the hand up, right? It is. And, you know, it's so important.
It is. And I have found the women leaders I have met, that is part of the core of who they are. Mm-hmm. And I think why it's how we lead differently. And not to say that I have met incredible men who have been a huge success and who've been helpful to me. Yeah. But I just see it more predominantly with women.
Yeah. And when you think about women raising up their voices and being seen and being heard in bigger ways, right? I mean, that's, you know, it's women are being called. That's what I believe,
absolutely.
Right? So what do you, why do you think we're being called? Why do you think just from a global perspective, right? I mean, that's really
I mean, I think you could feel, I have felt this momentum for a while, you know, back in 2013 when I started my first company. In 2012, Sheryl Sandberg's TED Talk went out. Now I know that Sheryl Sandberg now, there's a lot of mixed feelings out there about her talk and her lean in. And
I still love her.
I was just like, I think all of that's valid and I see those points. But in 2012, when she did that TED Talk, that was instrumental. Yeah. And it was a huge catalyst for me and it created momentum. Now, you know, nothing is imperfect, right? Does it have flaws? Sure. Yeah. But that momentum,
we all have flaws, right? I mean, I think it's like, and that's the beauty of it. It's like, you know, somebody puts up an opinion out there and it's like,
you have to start somewhere,
right?
You have to start somewhere.
That's the courage of it, right? Yes. I mean, it takes courage to do that.
It does. And so I think, you know, and not to say that it's all because of her, but I do, for me, that was a big moment. And that really created a lot of momentum for myself and so many other women.
Right.
And so I just think there were these pivotal things happening, and maybe even before 2012.
Right.
Then the Me Too movement, you know, the uprising of what I'm doing. Right before I opened, a company called The Wing opened in New York. And because of The Wing, we have been in ELLE Magazine, Today Show, Bloomberg, you name it. We've had some of the most amazing press. And I thank The Wing so much for it. And they're doing similar to what we're doing in New York. I mean, it's a slightly different spin on it.
Okay.
But I owe them so much for the press.
Because they opened up the door, right?
They opened the door. They created momentum. Yeah. So I think The Wing really gets some, you know, they get some of this behind, they get some credit. Ooh, words today. They should get some credit as to some of this momentum. They're doing really cool things. Yeah. There's just a lot of women coming to the table to make a change. I think enough's enough. Yeah. And we're ready to see it. Yeah. And what I really talk a lot about is this idea of soft and strong. I think in the past it was like you had to choose. Either I have to be super feminine and girly or I have to act like a man. You know, and our logo is purple and navy for a reason. You know, this concept of purple tends to be a more feminine color. Navy tends to be a really masculine color. And this idea of, you know, you can be both. Let's embrace both and really be who we want to be.
Yeah. And be who you are. Right.
And be who you are.
Right.
Like,
you know,
that.
Versus trying to say, you know, I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to be more of this masculine driven thing, or I'm going to be this more of the feminine side. Yeah. It's really just be who you are and let that shine through you.
Yeah. And own it. And I think, I don't know if you follow Brene Brown at all.
Totally.
Gosh, I can't wait to meet her one day. I know.
I hope she's on top of my, she's on my list for my podcast. One of my clients is going through.
Come on, Brene.
Yeah. One of my clients is going through one of her classes right now. I'm like, okay, introduction to me when you're done.
Please. Oh my gosh. Dream come true if I ever met her. I came this close to being, she was on Oprah, and I came this close to being able to be on that show, but I didn't quite make the cut. But the producer called me and I was like, oh, you know, but it's coming. Yes. But I think her work is really helping too, because this idea of embracing your authenticity and your vulnerability and working on shame resilience, I think those things are helping women to be more bold and to take steps that maybe they wouldn't have taken in the past. I can tell you, it was Brene Brown and Sheryl Sandberg are the two women's TED Talks that I came across at the end of 2012 that set me on this path. And their work really changed me as a human.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's totally awesome. So you have gotten incredible PR and you've got your big launch party here next week at Rise. You've got 500 people
I just checked yesterday. It's like 530 RCPs. I'm like, do I shut it down or do I keep taking them?
And you've got the mayor coming.
The governor and the mayor. So they're coming. And so,
you know, just what a lot of our members here, our listeners, are wanting to create, you know, they're wanting to create exposure, right? Yes. They're wanting to open up doors. They want to be influencers. Mm-hmm. You've come into Denver.
Yeah.
You've got the mayor, you've got the governor coming. What advice would you give as far as just really drawing influencers into your businesses, into the causes that you stand for? How do you bring influencers into your space?
Well, I think first of all, I think people don't realize how long it takes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I say that, but it's really, so I had never been to Denver prior to February, but from February till now, every time I'm here, I was having coffees, back-to-back coffees. I have probably met in that year, while I didn't hit quite 300, I have had coffees with probably 200 to 250 people here in Denver over the course of a year. Because it takes time. I'll be honest, when I first came, I'm an outsider. Nobody knows me.
Right.
Who are you? Why should I have coffee with you? Mm-hmm. So it took a good 6 months before I started getting in front of people who really could start creating the momentum. Right. So it takes time. And I think the biggest thing is building real relationships. You know, some people early on didn't want to have coffee with me because they're like, I don't need what you're selling. I'm like, great. I'm not selling anything. You know, like that's not who I am. But they didn't know me. And so they didn't know that that's not who I am. You know, there's the old CEO of Express Scripts. That's a massive company. George Paz, he was the CEO. He's incredible. When I had the opportunity to meet him, everyone's like, what are you going to ask for when you meet him? And I was like, I'm just going to try to get to know him and build a relationship with him, because I think that, I think, especially when you're successful all day long, people ask for something from them. It's very transactional. It's what can you do for me? Right. And that gets old really fast. Yeah, and that's not, you know, I don't believe that's how you build momentum. So my focus is how can I build real relationships with these people, not sell them on what I'm doing. And look, we have a great product. And if somebody needs what I have, they're going to get excited and they're going to get behind it and ask me. I remember when we met you, I was so excited to meet you. We have crazy schedules, so it took me a long time to meet you. And I remember we met, we had a great time, but I didn't say like, you have to join, you have to be a member.
And I left and went, I want to join.
Yeah, I got so excited, like an hour or two.
You totally didn't even.
No, I didn't even try to put you on.
Did not. And I was like, emailed you back and said, but I want to join. I want to be part of it. I can tell you how excited and proud I was that you reached out and said that to me, because my purpose of meeting you is just you're doing incredible things. And I wanted to know who you were, what you're doing, and how I could send people to what you're doing. Yeah.
And so it was like such this amazing feeling to know that someone like you believed in what I was doing and wanted to be a part of it. And so I think going back to your original question, when you focus on building real relationships and you put in time and effort, because it takes time and effort.
Right.
I compare it a lot, and you heard me talk at Women of Denver. There's this painting called A Sunday Afternoon by George Seurat. It's a beautiful painting done by this art form, pointillism. It's this idea of putting random dots on a page, and eventually those dots come together to create this beautiful masterpiece. But that is what this is like. You're putting on this page these random dots that feel like these are never going to come together. This is such a poor use of my time. And you shouldn't think that, but there are times
you're like, wow, how many of these can I do? Right.
And people will say to you, like, that's not very efficient. That's not the smart way to go about things. But eventually those dots start coming together and making that beautiful picture. And I really believe that's how we got the governor to say yes, how we got the mayor. People are like, how you did it? How did you do it?
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly. I mean, we applied online like anyone else, but I think it was that I had met enough of the right people that hopefully were endorsing us and saying you should go. To be honest, I don't know how we did it, so I don't want to say that that's why they came when I haven't gotten that intel yet. But I do think that it was just the momentum in making the right relationship.
I would agree. And for me, when I think at the end of the day, being a connector, being somebody that goes out and builds real relationships, there is nothing more powerful than that. And it's like you can, there's all of the various ways that you can grow and evolve your business, what you're doing, but it is real relationships.
And that translates online too, because people are like, what about online? I think it's the same.
They're real relationships.
You're building real relationships. So whether that's Instagram or LinkedIn or any of the other ones, how can you let people see who you are and get to know you as well as get to know them and provide value? And I think too often people are not providing value.
Exactly.
And I think that's really what
they want to just take and
they get grabby.
They get grabby or they're just pushing versus actually having a two-way
interaction, conversation. Exactly. Absolutely. So I think that's why we're able to create the momentum and buzz, but some of it could just be dumb luck.
And I think it's very much about that. And I love the visual of connecting these different dots that, it's like you keep doing the work and you keep building relationship and then that picture comes in.
And it doesn't happen overnight. No. I think that's where people get excited and want it to happen tomorrow. I'm that type A person, so I get it. But it takes a lot of time. And when you go in that grabby mentality, if it has to happen tomorrow, people feel that. They react to your energy.
Right.
So I try not to be that way. Never mind. I was going to give some of my pearls advice too early, so I'll wait.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what's next for Rise. Yeah. And just where people can learn more about Rise.
So, one of the things I'm really proud about in Denver is we have 70 founding members. We just got the keys on Monday and we have over 70
and they're members. An impressive 70.
I know.
I was like, wow, look at all those people out there. I was like, oh my God, I know so many of these women.
So growing our community, and luckily we have a great foundation. We also have 14 private offices, which those women are very much our anchor tenants. They set the tone for the space. We have about half sold, and so we have half left. And what we do differently is we strive for industry exclusivity. And so in St. Louis, I have a financial planner, an accountant, a digital marketing company, an event planner, a counselor who does couples counseling on site, which I love. And she does like fun date night workshops and all sorts of neat things. So these really diverse industries as anchor tenants in our space. It's not your traditional startup entrepreneur kind of co-working space. Not that we don't have cool startups. We have one called Babyation. She's raised several $1 million, is building a better breast pump, and she's incredible. So we do have some entrepreneurs, but we also have really amazing professional women and small business owners and corporate. But we're really looking for those anchor tenants.
Okay.
those women that want to be leaders in our space. Mm-hmm. And it's been fun in St. Louis to watch how their business has grown because of having an office here. Well, all of our members' businesses have grown, but even more so when you have an office and you're here all the time and you're a leader of the space. Right. I mean, we're talking 150, 200% in revenue growth. Wow. One woman was a drop-in member that went up to sharing an office and now has one of the biggest offices and has hired so many people because her growth is just happening so rapidly because she has such a presence here.
So you're seeing the impact on your client's business.
Oh, absolutely. It's been so neat. And I get to see how the businesses are starting to work together. Mm. There were 3 digital marketing companies that were early members in our space. One had an office and a couple of them were drop-in members. You know, and women and men sometimes still get a little nervous about competition. It's normal, even people who believe in Shine Theory, to have that bubbling up of fear and competition. And so there was some of that early on. But what I love is they all met and started talking about, like, what do you love doing in digital marketing? What do you love? And it turns out they all love different things. One was really into SEO. One was into Facebook ads. I think the third was into websites. I hope I didn't screw that up. But it was neat because then they decided, well, you know what? I don't have to do SEO if I don't really love it. I'm going to send my clients to you. Yeah. And then I'm going to send, you clients for ads in Facebook. So it was so neat to see how it even changed their business model in a way.
That's awesome.
So it's great. So building that here in Denver. Okay. So like I said, building those private offices and then continuing to grow our drop-in membership. And then we will start putting on large events. In St. Louis, companies like Warby Parker and Nicole Miller reached out to us to partner to put on an event. And Nicole Miller actually flew to St. Louis for us to interview her, which I still, people are like, how'd you accomplish that? And I'm like, she reached out via email. We have no idea. Yeah. But things like that, we want to start bringing large events here. Like you said, I'm bringing Sarah Fryer here, in conversation to bring Nicole back here. And just how can we continue to bring high value events to wherever we are, whether it's St. Louis or Denver.
Okay. Awesome. That's so awesome.
And then once I recover, we're going to look at a third location of Dallas, Scottsdale, Paris, who knows?
Yeah. So that would be next. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And your website is?
Thank you. riseworkspace.com, or you can find us on social media at Rise Collaborative Workspace. Now be careful because there is a company called Rise Collaborative. You got to get that workspace in there. You might be talking to somebody else, but that company's awesome. And when people tweet at them, they're really cool about it.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. And the question I always close with is, what 3 pearls of wisdom would you like to share with our audience today?
I almost gave one of them away too soon. That's what I was starting to reference. And I was like, wait a minute. The one I almost gave out earlier was advice I recently got. And the advice was, there's no unrealistic goals. There's just unrealistic timelines. And I tell myself that daily because I'm a go-getter and I didn't understand when I first started why things weren't happening.
It's like you want it now, right?
And I got grabby and I got really, that was great advice.
It all happens in the perfect timing. And I think that's something for us all to remember. It's like
the universe is conspiring on your behalf.
Exactly. I still believe that.
Yes. And so I have to tell myself, no unrealistic goals, just unrealistic timelines. So that's one of them. The second thing is, I love the quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's by Jim Rohn. And we live by that here at Rise Collaborative because I think the people that you surround yourself with really shape what you believe in, what you aspire to do. My husband and I are very different. He's a numbers stats guy. So if he were to, we were talking stats last night. I know that's so nerdy, but if he would hear 98% failure rate or something like that, he would live in the 98%.
Right.
And I can understand why. It's probably the intelligent thing to do. I live in the 2%.
And you're like, I see that 2%.
I see that 2% and I live in there. I truly believe that that's going to, whatever that thing is going to happen, which may be kind of silly logic. But I think surrounding yourself with people like that, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to do crazy things that, entrepreneurship has a crazy high failure rate. Yeah. So you have to surround yourself with people that kind of believe in the crazy, right? And so I think it really matters who you spend time with. So that's the second.
That. You surround yourself with people that believe in the crazy.
Oh no, that's my advice. Sometimes I hear the things I say and I'm like, what was I thinking?
No, but it's good. It's like, because it's otherwise we play too small. We play small.
You do.
If you're in that space of, not thinking bigger. And I think that's why I fell in love with you from the moment I met you, because you think big.
I'm a girl dreaming big.
And that's so important for us to do.
And even if you don't accomplish it, you're going to accomplish so much more than you would if you didn't have that crazy Crazy patient. Yeah. And then the last one is to focus on building your social capital, which we kind of talked about earlier. I talk a lot about that because first of all, I didn't know that phrase. And if you don't know that phrase, it's basically oversimplified is it's not what you know, but who you know. Yep. You know, building your network, building, knowing who to go to for what. I am a secret introvert, as we talked about, but I think I am a success because of that. There's research to show that the number one predictor to success is your social capital. Yeah. And that same research shows that women have access to less and different social capital. And so we at Rise, and several people, you as well, I'm on a mission to change that. Not every woman can have coffee with 300 women or 250 or whatever it is. That's not realistic. And I just happen to have the good fortune to do that. Yeah. But how can we make that social capital at other women's fingertips in a way that sets them up for success as well? Yeah. And so build your social capital in whatever way you can. And it looks different for different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are my pearls of wisdom.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been so much fun.
Thank you.
I'm excited to be here. Wish you guys could see it.
We have a chandelier above us. It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll have to show you the... Oh, look at this. We can do this.
Oh, there you go. I don't know if I'll do it justice. Yes. Oh, there's a chandelier. You don't see those often in co-working spaces. Exactly. Well, if they want to see it for themselves, they should go to our website, Rise Workspace, and go to our events page because you can find our grand opening there.
Yep. And you have maybe a few spots.
I know, right? I'm like, do I shut it down? Do I not? If I start to get anxious about fitting all those people in, I will be shutting it down. So, so if you're interested, I would get online and reserve your spot to attend our grand opening. It will be a fun event. And you'll get to see this space live.
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm excited to be working here on
Well, we're lucky to have
you. So, thank you so much. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. And it's been fun to do this on video and face-to-face. So this is the first one we've done face-to-face. And so thank you so much.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you all for listening.
I hope you liked this episode of Extraordinary Women Radio. If you did, please share this podcast with your own special tribe of women and help spread the love, the dreams, and the inspiration. Are you ready to raise up your voice, your visibility, and your business? I invite you to visit me at CamiGellner.com to find out how you can make heartfelt connections to mindful strategies to ignite an abundant flow of cash and clients into your business. I'd love to hear from you on any of my social media channels. I'm on both Facebook and Twitter. Till next time, my friend, listen to your heart, follow your dreams,